Excited to welcome you all to our 2020 Excellence in Teaching About Agriculture Award Recognition Ceremony. And before we get started, we're going to go over the order of events and have a few instructions. I hope that you've been able to watch the video of today's National Teacher Award winner, Cindy Lee, and her ag literacy efforts that have been posted to Facebook an hour ago and are available on the National Ag in the Classroom website at agclassroom.org. Ms. Lee and her state contact from New Mexico, Tracy Curry, will be given a few minutes to speak about her ag literacy efforts in just a little bit. After that, we'll open it up to questions. So please type your questions into the chat box on Facebook Live. Our technical host, Jessica Jansen, Oregon State contact, will be forwarding those to us. Although we had to cancel the National Ag in the Classroom Conference, it was supposed to be next week in Salt Lake City, Utah. We did not want to diminish the opportunity to recognize our National Teacher Award winners. So we're doing it a little differently this year. That's where your chance comes in to ask them questions. Earlier, we were talking about how much we've enjoyed these conversations and getting to learn a little bit more about the teacher beyond just the video that you get to see and the off chance of running into them in the hallway at the hotel. But our teachers have all been working diligently throughout the school year to incorporate ag literacy concepts into their classroom instruction and educate their students about the importance of agriculture. We will recognize all 8 of our Teacher Award winners and our Ag Literacy Advocate winner this month using Facebook Live, just like we're doing today. So please visit the National Ag in the Classroom website at agclassroom.org for a schedule of these recognitions. We would not be able to hold these recognition programs without the support of our sponsors, the USDA National Institute of Food and Agriculture and Farm Credit. And as I said, I hope that you've been able to watch Cindy Lee's video already to give you a small glimpse of what she's done. Highly encourage you to do that. But today we're recognizing Cindy Lee, a 7th and 8th grade science and science elective teacher at Snell Middle School in Bayard, New Mexico, where students go through a job interview process in which their placement oversees the school's chicken coop and greenhouse, and it's based on their background in science. So first off, we'd like to welcome Cindy Lee and Tracy Curry to our program with us. And to start with, Cindy, why don't you tell us where you're located, where Bayard is in New Mexico?
Bayard is in the southwestern part of New Mexico, kind of in the middle of nowhere, close to the Chino Santa Rita copper mine. So my students come from a mining area. So the students come from, some have almost an hour bus ride to get here. It's a rural school. We're very close to the desert, but also close to the national monument, the Gila Cliff Dwellings, a couple of hours from Las Cruces. That's the big city to go to. Silver City is our place for Walmart, which is our school rival. So we're just a little tiny town. And I live in an even tinier town, but
well, how big is the school, Cindy?
Well, until this coming year, we've had 6th and 7th grade students with a student population of about 200, a little bit less than 200. 6th grade will be joining us this next year. When I first started teaching, 6th grade was here. They were then put to the elementary. Now they're coming back. So I've gone full circle.
One of those things in education. Wait long enough and it'll all come back.
Exactly. Yes.
So you'll be at about 300 students next year, and you're teaching 8th grade science. One of the things that you are additionally that you oversee, some of your extracurricular activities include being the coach for the Science Olympiad. Why don't you talk a little bit about some of your extracurricular duties that you do in addition to science that really relate to your science curriculum?
Well, I'm a MES advisor, which is Math, Engineering, Science Achievement, and that's an ongoing full school year pre-college program. I also coach Science Olympiad, which is usually the students who are involved in MESA do the Science Olympiad on the regional and oftentimes on the state level. So those are after school science and engineering challenge, field trips, incorporating math, science, all the STEM activities.
And it's interesting to me, you mentioned being from the mining aspect. Ag in the Classroom, we talk a lot about things that go on in the earth, and mining, not agriculture, but still a part of the environment and natural resources activities. How much background do your students have in agriculture being from a mining community?
Not a lot. Not a lot. I was actually at an ag day at New Mexico State, and one of the presenters asked what agricultural products come from Grant County. It was sad that my students could not answer correctly. You know, they said tomatoes because maybe somebody grows tomatoes, you know, and ranching is the agricultural area here. Deming is about an hour away, you know, where there's chili, cotton, pecans are, you know, are picking up in Deming a lot, but they don't get there. They don't get there. I'm finding that my students do not go as far, and when they do, they're not looking out. They're not seeing what's around them. So it has to be presented to them. That's what I find.
And I think that's one of the reasons Tracy's nodding her head. I think that's one of the reasons your efforts are being rewarded and recognized here today because of what you've done. All right, in my private life, I also happen to serve as the president of our local school board. And not only do you have a greenhouse, but you got a chicken coop. Tell us a little bit about working with animals with a bunch of, I'm a former junior high teacher too. Tell us about working with animals with the junior high level at a school.
Well, I have animals. I've had animals in my classroom probably since the second year I started teaching. I started in January. I have a lot of turtles. I'm in my classroom right now, but it's empty. But I have water turtles, and I have a tortoise that's in the classroom. I have a turtle right now that I've had in my classroom for over 25 years. My first classroom animal was a rabbit. You know, to teach that responsibility and stewardship, which is an ongoing thing. The chicken coop has been the last few years that I've added the chicken coop. The greenhouse has been, I don't know, it's probably been 12 or 13 years that I've had a greenhouse going. So it's all incorporated in my science class, and agriculture is incorporated in that. So I have more than just the chickens. I mean, it depends on the year, everything except snakes. No snakes. Snakes are not allowed. Could be pigeons and doves. It could be hamsters and guinea pigs. The turtles are always here. It kind of depends on the year and what happens.
I think that's very interesting. And you know, I think of a chicken coop, and I think of a greenhouse, and I think of man, you must be at one of those schools that's just rolling in the money. Every teacher would, if money was no object, they could have all of that. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your funding sources and how you pulled this together on a, shall we say, shoestring budget?
Definitely a shoestring budget. So New Mexico budget is very low. So to be honest, I get zero budget for my science class. I have not received any money other than what I accumulate. A former colleague who's retired now used to say, Cindy, you're just a scrounge. I was like, yes, I scrounge for whatever I can get wherever. So I apply for grants, fundraising, donations. So the greenhouse and the chicken coop are from two different grants over a period of a couple of years, from Freeport-McMoran, which is the mining area, but also, well, it used to be Texas, New Mexico Power, P&M, wherever there's a grant available, and they're usually small grants in comparison to some things, you know, $5,000 or less. And so I just pretty much every year I write some kind of grant to get funding to support what I'm doing, because there's not a budget. There's not a budget. It's zero.
So not necessarily to Cindy, but to all the other teachers that are out there, there are grants available, and this is how you can help with that. At Ag in the Classroom, I know that here in Illinois, we can help direct you to specific ones, and other state contacts, they can help direct you to other grants as well. But we're here to help you do this. And Cindy, let's talk a little bit about the ag literacy efforts. In the video, you talk about strawberries from the garden, and everyone is enjoying a strawberry shortcake, a strawberry milkshake, and you talk about eggs from your chicken coop, and everyone enjoys a breakfast burrito. So talk a little bit about how your students see this this agriculture from both the berry perspective and the chicken perspective, from farm to table right there at the school.
So it started with the greenhouse. We had the greenhouse first. And so with the goal in mind to raise food, to produce food, even if it's on a small amount that we're going to consume or we're going to share with someone, the purpose is to raise food. So strawberries came about because they can winter over, and because there's not, I had heat for a short time in the greenhouse until that was kind of nixed. So, but the strawberries, and we have an ongoing crop, but with having, say, 100 students, in 1 year, I've convinced them that if we freeze the strawberries, then there can be shakes for everyone at the end, so that everyone is receiving from that. We also, so strawberries are our main crop, but we also, tomatoes or chili, I will transplant things from the summer at home and produce those things, get taken to the cafeteria to get mixed in with, like we've had tomatoes and jalapenos, get mixed in with the salsa. The cafeteria has to supplement with that, but when the student's eating salsa, they know that part of those tomatoes and part of those jalapenos came from the greenhouse. The same way with the eggs from the chicken coop. So we're getting leftover vegetables and things from the cafeteria and feeding that, turning it back in, and we're eating the eggs and also sharing the eggs, but we don't share them until every student has consumed some of the egg, unless there's an allergy, which we've been fortunate we haven't had that, where everyone gets to try it, and then we're putting the food. So our whole goal, they have to know that the goal is producing food for the world, even if our world is small, and we can only produce a small amount.
Sometimes our elementary teachers, they're able to see those light bulb moments. And as a junior high teacher, sometimes the kids are a little more aloof, a little more standoffish. Can you give us an example of one of those light bulb moments you've seen with your students when they finally made that connection to what's going on with the agriculture they're being exposed to?
Yeah, I have students that are like everyone that thinks that chicken nuggets just come from McDonald's, where do they start and what's the connection? But I have seen a couple of those moments when making the food. So we've had some trials. So trials bring about things. So I'm thinking about 1 year when we had slugs that were eating our strawberries, and the students come in. So they do jobs every day because they're already doing other jobs, but the agriculture. So they're coming in a couple of days in a row, different classes. Something's eating our strawberries, so it's slugs. So then I had them research for some ways to get rid of the slugs. And so students had that, and that was good. But then there was some discussion going on about the slugs and, different ways to get rid of them, cornstarch sprinkling, different things, chemical pesticides. And I was letting them come up with an idea. And one girl said, oh, but we can't do those. We can't kill those slugs. Those slugs are living things. We can't do that. And I just held my tongue for a minute, and I'm glad I did, because then other students coming in, and finally somebody said, do you want strawberries? If you want strawberries, you have to deal with this. Just like farmers have to deal with insects eating their crops, we have to deal with it. And I was just like, yes, informed collaboration. I was excited. And after that discussion, that girl came around, and she was kind of influencing some others of like, oh, no, we can't kill the poor little slugs, until others were pointing out, no, we're supposed to be growing strawberries. Of course, it ended up with, do you want strawberry shakes or do you want slugs? And of course it went with the shakes. So that was one of those moments. Had another one with the chickens. Right before school last year, some critter demolished the nesting box, got into the chicken coop and killed the chickens. And so it was starting over. And so we had a rooster kind of just to get things going until, we had some chickens big enough. But then it was time for the rooster to not be here anymore. It had already been determined that egg production was what we're looking for, not increasing our flock from baby chicks. But there were some students who felt like we should still keep the rooster. And so then there had to be some discussion. Do we have enough space for the rooster? Are we feeding the rooster? Is he not going to be productive because, we're not doing this again? I let them determine that. And one of the students said, we're here to we're raising these chickens for eggs, not pets. We're doing agriculture, not a zoo. We need to find a home for the rooster. And a couple of girls wanted to build another space for the rooster, and they were saying, no, that's going to take more money, and if we're doing more space, then we need to increase the hens because we're trying to get eggs. And I thought these kids are going to be ready to make informed decisions when they have to vote or do something with some policy to keep agriculture happening. So those are things that I felt like, okay, they've got it. Might not be all of them, but they've got it.
Thank you for that, because you weren't in your box as a science teacher. You were doing everything across the board. So I think that's what your students will remember from that. You mentioned something earlier about heat in New Mexico in a greenhouse. Isn't it always hot in New Mexico? I thought that's the way it was here in Illinois. Tell us a little bit about your school and where you're located and why you might need heat.
Okay, so the greenhouse, the season in the greenhouse, it's great to have it. But when school starts, it's too hot in the greenhouse. By the time winter comes, it's too cold without supplemental heat. So when school first starts and toward the end, there is an area, I'm not sure why when the building was remodeled, but there's like a canopied area with a block around it. So our strawberry plants are in earth box planters. So they have to get moved to regulate the temperature. So it's too hot right now in the greenhouse. In the winter, the temperature will be just right. But there are times that there's some plants that can't survive in the greenhouse without supplemental heat, which budget does not allow for supplemental heat. So even it's not hot all the time. You know, we get freezing temperatures. We might get a couple of snow days a year, nothing like what you would get, but it is too cold. We just have to rotate what we're doing.
And I thought that was interesting. One of my other teachers that I honored was from Maine, and she was talking about how short their growing season is. Your growing season is a little longer, but you still also have elevation factors to take into account.
Yes, yeah, we're about 6,500 feet. So, you know, so we have cold mornings and warm in the middle of the day and cold nights.
Right. So one of the things that in the video you talk about is your students interviewing for jobs in the greenhouse. Can you explain a little bit about that career path and the different jobs they're interviewing for, and what exactly you're looking for while they're interviewing?
Okay, so the very first week of school, students are made aware that they are going to be working as scientists when they come to my class. So they fill out a job application, and that asks for information, helps me get to know them, but they also have to put down any science experience. And then I have interviews with them, and they're placed on job crews. And so I try to mix up people on the job crews based on their strengths and weaknesses. At the beginning of class, every day they're doing jobs. So they come in, I take attendance, they're getting out their timesheet ready. So afterwards, so it's like the first 10 minutes of class, and then they're doing jobs. So they have a different job every day of the week, and it rotates. So it's zoology, physics, meteorology, whatever they're doing. Agriculture is a part of that. It hasn't always been. That kind of evolved into it. So then they do the job. When they finish, they come back and they fill out, I have a little bell, I ring the bell, they fill out their timesheet, and this rotates. So throughout the week, they're getting experience in every area of science. So agriculture is now a part of that. It hasn't always been a part of that, but they're working in agriculture. When it's their day to do agriculture, they are going out to the chickens or to the greenhouse with whatever needs to be done, specific assignments. On other days, they might be doing something with engineering and physics, and it's unfortunately it's just a few minutes, but it's every day, and it is an excellent classroom management. I do not have tardies in my class. Most of the time I'm starting class before the bell rings because students they want to do jobs. I mean, they can lose their job. Students have been fired or laid off if they're not being responsible, so they know they have to be.
Talk
But
about great real life experience for that, and maybe being assigned a job you don't like, but figure out what you could like from it and make the most of it while you're there. So.
and I do have, it has evolved to this last year. I was able to have an ag exploration elective class, and those students were kind of spread out among all the other classes. So they did a little, it was more extended from what we were doing for jobs with the chickens and the greenhouse, but then also engineering with, they were using the engineering process to design pig pens and a pig simulation. But I found that those leading students I could use in each class because I had at least one or two in every other class. They then would take their group out and teach them what they had done in the extended ag exploration class. So it went beyond just those few minutes. So they were able to have some leadership and some instruction from peers on other things with ag.
Right. And what about your high school? The students move on from you for 8th grade. Do they go on to an FFA program, or how many of them are involved in your local 4-H as well?
So our school district historically had an FFA program and then did not have one for 10 years. And it's just been 2 years that there was an FFA program that just started. And that actually led to me being able to have this ag exploration class to feed into that. So it hasn't been long enough to know if any of them will. I currently, in this last school year, I didn't have anyone who was in 4-H. I've spoken with 4-H leaders and trying to incorporate that also. There, I guess in the past, probably very few, so probably maybe 3 or 4 students that would be in 4-H or FFA. And even, you know, in the past, my own children were in FFA, but not when they were already older when I had the greenhouse and the chicken coop.
Yeah, sure. Leave the best for the others. Leave your kids out. I'm sure you hear about that. So
yeah, they were just past middle school by the time that got incorporated in.
Understood. Tracy, I'm going to ask Tracy Curry, the state contact from New Mexico, to join in. Wow, seems like Cindy has continued to shine and blossom with what she's doing with Ag in the Classroom in New Mexico. Can you share with us what made her stand above all your other great teachers that you're working with across your state?
Cindy actually has more, she's been part of New Mexico Ag in the Classroom longer than I have. She's been instrumental in it since its founding. I found out, I didn't even know this until after she was a winner, but she even went to a field trip to Mexico with one of the very first big teacher workshops. So she's got a lot of foundational knowledge of New Mexico Ag in the Classroom, and she's always part of our workshops that we offer. So she's just been a regular part of that, but when you get to visit with her, and then of course visiting in her classroom, you see how amazing what she does is. It's just, especially for being a 20+ year veteran teacher, her passion still shines through, and what she does on a dime, and how much of that I'm sure is probably her own contributions. But getting to visit with her kids shows how much of a great teacher she is. It's just, you see how proud they are when you walk in the classroom and you watch them do their jobs. And I've been in a lot of middle school classrooms, and I have not seen that type of engagement and interaction at that level. With her just kind of, okay, it's time for your jobs, and then for them to be able to also articulate and share and be excited about sharing what they're doing. And it's across the board. You can tie agriculture, the big picture of agriculture, into everything she does. And she does it because it's from her heart, and it's not something that she's required to do. I think it also shows in that her son is also a New Mexico Ag teacher. So the apple doesn't fall very far from the tree, and you know that her love of agriculture and New Mexico and science, it just shows. You go into their school and their Mesa Awards takes up a lot of space. So recognizing Cindy was very easy to do. She's just an amazing, amazing, amazing teacher.
Well, great. Well, that's wonderful. Cindy, earlier when we were just getting on and warming up, you were talking about there are some weeds growing in the greenhouse, in the garden, that kind of stuff because of the shutdown that's impacting all of us. What do you typically do with your greenhouse in a typical year over the summer for both the greenhouse and your chicken coop? And what's been going on with those things now?
Well, typically what happens is there's still some things happening. The strawberries get moved over to the shaded area, so it's not so hot, but they're still here at the school. The chickens are maintained, and that requires me coming in to check. I've also had very supportive custodial staff, so that if there's a time that I could not come in, they would take care of things. Any summer programs that are happening, we try to use those students, even if I'm not teaching, to come in and involve those. And there's some years that I'm carting home strawberry planters to keep things alive and carting them back. This year with the COVID-19, when I realized I didn't know, we were from spring break on and didn't know when we would be back, I took strawberries home because this building was going to be shut down and I didn't know how much coming in and who would be here. Another teacher has chickens at her house. I was prepared to try to figure out some way to take them, but they're at summer camp at Mrs. Cornwell's house right now, and I'm checking and supporting that. But I had to reassure the students, and I have throughout the crisis learning, things are okay. Here's some pictures of what's happening. Here are the chickens, but pretty much it is a lot of work to maintain things year round when you don't have students here year round. But I have had support, like I say, from some custodians who would fill in if I wasn't here, or some other teachers.
And I think that really shows a testament to not only you, but your students, that they were worried about the chickens during this as well.
Oh, yes, definitely.
Obviously, caring about the animals, they are agriculture, as we discussed earlier, not pets, but we still got to take care of them. So really a testament to them. And, they're 8th graders, they're going on to high school next year. They're still worried about what's going on with their animals, their livestock.
Right, and I have 7th and 8th graders, so some of them will be returning, and we're hoping that we get to participate in the county fair this year, which is another thing that I will just add. If you have students that so Grant County has a county fair, and until I started trying to figure out a way to get students out there, I would have maybe 2 students out of 100 who had ever been to the county fair. And I've been able to arrange some transportation sponsored by the local Farm Bureau, and some teachers who went along as chaperones had never been to the county fair. And seriously, it's 30 miles away, and they had never been to the county fair. That's sad to me. So I'm working on trying to get that so that that's not the case anymore.
Well, with that, Cindy and Tracy, the moderator is letting me know that we've reached our time limit. I just want to thank you for your inspiration, for your continued work. Thank you for being just an excellent representative of what agriculture excellence really means for our Ag in the Classroom Award. Thank you to everyone. Thank you for participating in today's recognition of our 2020 National Excellence in Teaching About Agriculture Award recipient, Cindy Lee of New Mexico. She certainly does set a great example of how agricultural concepts are an exciting way to teach all subjects, even some civics and stuff you're not supposed to be teaching, but the students will learn from that. We hope you've learned something from today's recognition ceremony, and we invite you to join us for the next one, scheduled for Wednesday, June 17th at 10 a.m. Eastern, as we honor Jeremiah Best of New York. So we're going from New Mexico to New York. Tracy, Cindy, thank you very much. May you both be well. Thank you very much, guys. Congratulations.
Thank you.